You're listening to Allman in the Morning, Common Sense Radio.
All right, so I have a third favorite story now that has surpassed the other previous two. The first favorite story was, of course, the Starbucks Frappuccino with blood in it. Mm-hmm. The second one was the Me Too Time Magazine Person of the Year woman who now is accused of sexual harassment. That was but this one's, I think, going to be my favorite until somebody else pops by. A college student said she flushed her emotional support hamster down the toilet after Spirit Airlines refused to let her bring her furry pet on the plane.
Oh, no.
I don't know what's more disturbing, the flushing of the hamster or the fact that there is such a thing as an emotional support hamster.
Right.
Jim Carafano back in action. Hey, you mentioned the Korean War and how veterans, when they see when cold weather, to this day, your dad always, cold weather bothers him because of the experience. It reminds me of a couple of stories that a guy once told me, and it was at a gathering, a veterans gathering, and one of them was the story about the Battle of the Bulge veteran. And he would sit there when it was like snow flurries or something. He would sit there and stare out the window, wouldn't say a word, and never forgot, because that was the freezing cold weather too. And then the other one was a person who was a survivor of the Normandy invasion, and every time it was like rainy and misty and a little cold, he'd do the same thing. He'd shut down and just want to think because that's exactly the weather in Normandy. So crazy.
Yeah, wars never end, right?
Right.
We take them home with us, and sometimes we channel those things. Sometimes we can't forget them. My dad had terrible PTSD. He had it when he was in his 60s. So it wasn't until his life started to slow down a bit, and he wasn't raising kids and paying bills and stuff, and when he just had time to kind of, think, and all that stuff came welling back, and he had some of his toughest times, literally 40 years after the war.
Yeah, it's interesting too because my son Ethan, who is an Iraq War veteran, hot. When it's really hot. He has flashbacks to when he was in Iraq, because obviously popping through the desert all the time and being there. And actually, one of the things that Ethan tells me about his experience there that affected him so deeply, and it was nothing related. He got his combat action badge. He was shot at. He was pinned down at a bridge. Everything else because he was a bridge engineer. And but the thing that affected him most was when he saw a discarded baby in a canal, and what that that baby, and what that did to him really was it was a mark of the utter inhumanity of that whole environment. And I think that's really what, you can see a dead soldier, see this, but that was a symbol of this basically the general inhumanity of what he was involved in there.
Right. So to segue, not to make light of emotional hamsters, but one thing that's actually been very, very important is service dogs.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of veterans who have a variety of things from seizures to PTSD. Dogs, for example, can detect seizures before they happen, and they can alert that their owner that they're going to have a seizure, and then they can deal with that. So there's some just for folks that are moved by this kind of stuff. There's lots of amazing groups out there. One is a whole bunch of groups that are working with service animals. A lot of them they get out of shelters and they train them. It's very expensive, very time consuming for veterans. So there's one group that we've worked with in Florida for many years called Canines for Warriors, which is an unbelievable organization. And then there's several other around the country. So that's an important thing. So and one of the problems we're having is, like on airlines, you can only have so many service animals on airlines, and people have broken the code on this since there isn't really a thing of what qualifies. And so, literally, people will come on with their service, with their pet hamster and their pet whatever, and they'll say, "Oh, this is my service animal." And then what will happen is a vet will come up to the plane with a service dog, and they won't be able to get on the plane because somebody's on there with their pet hamster.
Oh wow, yeah. Well, speaking of that, and we're not going to get to the Latin American trip, but that's fine. Speaking of, they have the Mizzou here, the University of Missouri, just issued a statement yesterday talking about their therapeutic riding program for veterans.
Very important.
But that's a horse riding program.
Right. Yep.
So
those are great. That's another great thing. There's a group out in Montana that does fly fishing.
Oh wow!
It's called Warriors in Quiet Waters. Great, and other people do skiing, and so there's lots of different ways to deal with this stuff. Look, it's not that it's wrong to say veterans are wounded or broken or whatever, and it's wrong to say war is a terrible thing. This is just part of being human.
Right.
So, for example, a lot of first responders have issues like this. A lot of people have issues like this, and so we need to put the war stuff aside. It's humans are by and large loving, compassionate animals, and when we see horrible, terrible things, it actually affects us and hurts us.
Sure,
and we care about other people. And for some, the struggle is harder than others. But for our veterans are out there defending us. For those guys and for our first responders, we as a society have a special obligation to be loving and compassionate, and help them, get their life back.
Law enforcement the same way. Jimmy, listen, buddy, thanks so much. At JJ Carafano, heritage.org. You follow him on Twitter. He's got updates on the Rex Tillerson Latin America trip. Yeah, Rex Tillerson is still the Secretary of State, ladies and gentlemen. All right, Jimmy, have a great weekend, man. Thanks for sharing all that with us.
All right.
Appreciate you, man. Bye.